Curtis Calhoun here with MMA News, and my next guest is coming off of another big win at UFC 297 this past weekend. Garrett Armfield joining me for the first time. How's it going, Garrett?
Going great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, obviously, just a few days removed from that impressive performance at UFC 297. What can you tell us in terms of how the fight played out versus your own expectations, your performance, and just kind of everything involved?
Yeah, I thought the fight played out pretty close according to plan. We stuck to our game plan very well. I did expect more of a higher pace off the start from him. Um, I was expecting to have more volume from him right off the bat. So I was a little taken back by that he wasn't really answering any of my strikes really in the first 2 minutes of the fight. Other than that, it went exactly how I expected. He was going to try to throw a lot of hooks and then tie me up if he can, and then use the takedowns and then win on points. But luckily, our game plan worked, and I was able to fight off his attacks and establish my own pace. And we kind of fought my fight. I didn't really fight his fight. We fought more so at my fight. So I think that's what helped a lot and helped me get the win.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy to prepare for, right? Because he usually comes out with a lot of pressure, looks to change levels and really push the pace. What were some of the adjustments that you had to make, especially in the first few minutes of the fight, once you realized that, hey, like this guy isn't pressuring as much as we thought he would?
Yeah, it was just my coaches wanted me to touch a little bit more instead of trying to punch through him, just touch him. That way he couldn't use it to his advantage and be able to tie me up. So it was just more so like be more reserved and just keep the volume pumping. So hats off to my corner. They did a hell of a job guiding me through the fight. Every single minute of the fight, I felt like they're helping me. So I couldn't have done it without them.
What's that? How important is it to have that level of trust with your corner? Because as you mentioned in other interviews, you've only been at this gym that you're at, for a matter of months, I think, right? So
Yeah.
kind of talk to us a little bit about how important that is to establish that trust, especially, just a few months away from making the move.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's like it's very important. Fighting is it can't be a cookie cutter thing. It's a very personal sport. It's like a spiritual experience, and like everything is just such a subjective point of view whenever you look at a fighter. Um, because everybody uh reads timing and space different, and having like an important coach in corner to help guide you through that. Like I said earlier, it's very important. You don't want to go out there flying blind. You still need your radars to be working. And so, I was just really happy. I'm very lucky to have coaches that care so much and that are very analytical and that are able to dedicate so much of their time to helping me get a win.
How much of an impact has Trey Ogden had on your career during this short stint at the gym?
Oh, huge. Before I came to Marathon, I hadn't fought in a year, and I was 0-1. And fast forward 5 months, I'm now 2-0 on a two-fight win streak, and just beat the biggest name in my entire career on my record. So it's huge.
I've talked to a few guys that have trained at that gym and have worked closely with Trey Ogden. They've all mentioned that he could potentially be a coach in the long term, right? Like in terms of potentially having his own team, his own gym, looking long term past his fighting career. Do you see that? Like, do you see him potentially being a really solid coach in the future?
I mean, he is a really solid coach right now. He has his own gym, and he has three UFC fighters under him, and he can do it at the same time. And not to mention all the fighters that we have coming up that are undefeated right now. So it's not in the future. The future is now for him, and so he's able to do both, and he's going to have a long coaching career ahead of him.
Absolutely, man. I want to get back to the fight a little bit too, because something that really stood out to me as I was rewatching the fight this morning is, you were flowing really well with pretty much everything he threw, right? Like your defensive boxing was really strong. You were able to throw your feints really well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, the development of that aspect of your game in terms of being able to flow and what that feeling is like in there?
Yeah, that's just from like years and years of training and like rounds and rounds of training. Like I had my first like actual fight when I was 7 or 8 years old, and so I've been exposed to fighting for a very long time, and that's something like the head movement and all of those things that I do, like being able to slip punches and counter back. Um, to be honest with you, I can't really explain how I do it. I just get a sense that a hook's coming, so I dip. Um, and that's again from like years and years and years of training and years of just uh being obsessed with the sport. And so that's it helps me with my timing and like my space. Um, and I did feel like I definitely got in my flow during that fight. Um, I'd never gotten in the flow like that before in my fight. Usually I'm like in a rush to finish it. And so that was really cool because I'll train like that all the time where I'll evade a lot of shots. And it was nice to see me finally get to that point in an actual live fight on like the biggest stage that I've fought on yet. So it's a sign for good things in the future. So I'm really, really happy with how everything went.
And what is that feeling like in terms of, having all that time to prepare? And, as you mentioned, you haven't really felt like that in a fight before in terms of being in that type of flow state. So when you put in all that hard work and the preparation, you see a result like that, like mentally, how much of an impact does that have on you, and how much of a boost of confidence is too?
It's a huge boost of confidence. You know, to be able to go out there and get a UFC win is like, oh, awesome. Like not so many people can say that. A lot of people go 0-2 or 0-3 and out. But then to go back and do it again, that's like a huge boost of confidence where it's like now it's like, oh, now I have potentially to get a new contract, or even so, like a big fear of mine was to lose. If I would have lost last night, then I would have had one more shot to make sure I get the win to get signed to a new contract. But now that I've won this one, it just like a whole up like a future of opportunity awaits for me. And it's cool because now I'm like I think it's going to be a long career for me, and it's something that brings a lot of weight off my shoulders because I've sacrificed so much and gave up so much like of my other things that you could do in life just to be a fighter. Um, miss out on families, birthdays, anniversaries, all of that stuff that's usual. You miss out being a fighter, but even like the financial aspect of like not getting uh um consistent like reliable job, like just barely making it by just so you can do this. And so now it's just like a huge weight off my shoulders that I'm gonna be able to have this job as a legit career where I'm gonna be able to change my life financially and provide for a future family.
And has your management and you been in contact with the UFC since the fight in terms of new contract talks or anything like that, or is it too
No, no,
soon after?
I haven't heard anything yet. I've just been kind of just relaxing. I don't try to rush things. I just kind of, because I'm gonna get a text from him eventually about it, and so whenever I do, that's when it'll be.
Absolutely, man. And I want to get your thoughts. Like, obviously, you're coming off of two straight wins now since your UFC debut. What are some of the biggest improvements that you feel like you've made, as a fighter, as a person, whatever you want to call it, since your UFC debut?
Shit, I feel like I've made the most improvements in my life in the past like 7 months. I feel like I'm a completely different person than I was a year ago, and I think it's because I moved back to Missouri, and I would live in Florida for so long, but I was always kind of felt out of place, and I wasn't really happy. Um, I was like in a toxic relationship, not being happy with the training, like constantly just like not a happy person, and you know, for you to like live out to your potential, you have to be happy. And so I decided to get up and move. And now I'm in a relationship with like the girl I've been best friends with since I was like 10 years old. And I'm winning all these fights. And I'm able to like grow my brand a lot easier out here because it's a smaller market. Kansas City's way smaller than South Florida, and nobody really gives a shit about you in South Florida. So I'm getting a lot of new opportunities out here. And it's like for me to, find myself and find out who I was, I had to move back home, which is like so interesting because I thought when I first moved out to Florida that I went out there to find out who I wanted to be. And it's cool. The whole world, like everything just comes full circle.
Talk to me a little bit about the support system you have. You've mentioned your girlfriend and the long relationship and friendship you guys have had over the years. But
Yeah,
talk to me a little bit about, your family. Like how closely have they followed your career and kind of what did they think about the fight last Saturday and what have they kind of made
yeah.
about how things
So
played?
my family came out to Canada. I'm the youngest of five kids, so there's seven of us total, and two of my siblings and my parents came out, and so that was awesome. The first time they got to go to Canada, so it was awesome. They got to travel and they're getting to see the world too. Um, and then my entire family actually grew up doing karate, and so like all seven of us, we did karate together. We all have our black belt in Taekwondo, and so they're very supportive, and they come to every single fight, and they just want to see me happy, and they don't care if I fight or not. Yeah, it's cool to have your son be a UFC fighter, but at the end of the day, if I wasn't happy doing this, and they wouldn't want me doing it. So they're supportive with no matter what life I chose, and you know. I'm very lucky to have that because some people don't.
And how did growing up doing Taekwondo kind of fuel this passion and thirst for MMA fighting that you have now? Like what
Yeah.
was kind of the path for you in terms of to where you are today?
Um, well, I got my first pair of boxing gloves at like 7, and I was just like, I just always did it just because my family did it, and so it was expected of me. And I feel like I didn't have a choice not to do it, but I didn't care. In like middle school, I would take the after school activities bus, and I lied to them and told them I lived in the apartment buildings across the street from the gym, just so they'd drop me off at the gym, and I could or drop me off at those apartments. I'll just cross the street, and then I'd go to the gym like 2 hours before karate class started and just like practice my like leg kicks on the bag. Um, and as soon as I turned 16, I just went up and I would start driving up to the gym. I got a key. I took my mom's key because she had a key to the gym because she helped clean. And I had the key, and so I would just go up there by myself and just spend hours hitting the bag. Um, it's just been such like a place for me to like escape to from like the real world. I still feel that way about fighting. Um, like whenever I'm like in actual training, like it's cool because nothing else really matters. And so I'm just obsessed with it. It's like my therapist. Fighting's my therapist, you know. So I think that's a big thing. And it's cool because usually after fights, I usually like to like kind of go get not crazy, but I like to go out and drink and have fun and hang out with my friends and relax. But this time it feels different. Like this time I'm just like ready to get back, and I feel like I'm more motivated now than I've ever been.
Absolutely, man. I got to ask you a little bit in terms of what's next. This one last question. By the way, it's great to meet you, great to chat with you, and learn a little bit
Yeah,
about your journey too. Um, what kind of opponent do you feel like makes the most sense for you next? Because obviously, you just beat a two-time The Ultimate Fighter champion and Brad Katona. You
yeah.
got two straight wins now. Are you looking to potentially, test yourself against another veteran as you
I
move your
mean,
way towards the top
yeah,
15?
yeah.
What are you thinking?
It's interesting because I mean, obviously, that's ultimately the UFC's choice, who they want me to fight next. But I don't really care who I fight next, to be honest with you. It could be a guy that's coming off the contender series. It could be a guy on a 2-fight losing streak and their UFC wants to push me now, or it could be someone that's also 2-1 or someone that's 3-0 in the UFC. Um, I'm ready for anything and everything. I'm not. I to be honest, I don't want to go chasing the top 15 until I've had a little bit more experience and I got a little bit better contract. And so for now, I'm just focused on continue to get as much experience as I can. Because again, these are just like small little investments for a bigger return in the end.
No doubt about it, man. Well, before we wrap things up here, I want to give you the final word to shout out your team, your family, friends back home, anybody you want to shout out, sponsors you're working with, anything like that. I'll give the final word.
Yeah, shout out to all my friends and family and everybody at Marathon MMA. If you guys want to follow my journey, you can at Armfield 135 on Twitter and Garrett Armfield 135 on Instagram. Shout out to my sponsors, Sheath Underwear, Moonmen Apparel. Thank you guys so much for all your help, and look forward to climbing the cage soon.
Absolutely, man. Well, Garrett, is great to meet you. Great to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks,
Congrats again on
Curtis.
the performance, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon, man. Thank you so much.
Of course. Have a great day.